And hello and welcome everyone to the Pumpkin Copter Cast, a good old podcast about video games. Today, I am very excited for I have a guest I've been wanting to say words with for quite a bit. I am joined by Robbie Benson of the Super Soul Brothers.
Yes. How's it going?
So, let's just get things off with the most obvious questions. What is Super Soul Brothers, and why should people buy all of your things?
Well, Super Soul Bros is a band I started about 4 or 5 years ago. Um, in essence, we're a funk, jazz, soul fusion group. We play instrumental, just kind of rearrangements, funky arrangements of video game songs. And we're also branching out into anime and other like TV and movie soundtracks. Um, I started it about 5 years ago with the intention of someday maybe getting to play at FanimeCon. So I'm based in San Jose, California, and one of the largest anime conventions in Northern California is Fanime, and it's in our hometown of San Jose. And I had the thought of just getting some of my musician buddies together and jamming on some video game tunes. On the weekend of Fanime. And so some friends of mine own a burrito restaurant, which is walking distance from the convention center. And so they let us basically set up in the restaurant and play. We just played music throughout the whole weekend, essentially. And a lot of foot traffic. A lot of people came from the convention center and checked us out, and they dug what we were doing. And then the next year, I got some more musician buddies involved, and the band just kind of grew from there. And we started doing it more frequently than just this annual Fanime weekend. We started to do shows not on Fanime weekend, and it's kind of just snowballed from there. We've been doing various shows. Last year we performed at E3. We've been doing MagFest, various other events, but we've still yet to actually play at Fanime. Maybe someday.
I noticed that at this past PAX East, you and the other Soul Bros
Hmm.
got your own jam space, and I gotta admit, I was really angry because that's like the first PAX East in like 3 or 4 years I didn't go to because
Oh
of
wow,
reasons, and ugh.
gotcha. Yeah, that's so awful. I'm hoping we can make it out there more frequently. Basically, me and at least I have been to PAX East the last 3 or 4 years, but I'm usually just playing on the expo show floor. Like I'm playing usually at the Fan Gamer booth. Fan Gamer is it's like a merchandise kind of branding company. They make a lot of great video game inspired designs and artwork, and a lot of that's you got shirts and all kinds of cool stuff. They're basically buddies of ours. We've known them they've known us for forever, and so once they started having their own store in the expo hall at PAX, they invited me to basically play piano solo and take requests and play video game tunes to people that are passing by. And then that kind of also escalated over the years, where I started to bring more members of the band, and so now we have sometimes 3 or 4 of us playing in a pretty extraordinarily small amount of square footage. Like they give us a little triangle, and we have to stick within this little zone without the fire marshal yelling at us. And a lot of the time when we'll play, crowds will form, and a lot of the enforcers at PAX, they have to, as much as they love what we're doing, they have to keep people moving along. But it's really cool. Every time that's been an issue, the enforcers have been super cool, and they're usually trying to extend our little square footage. They like bust out some tape and like make a little little corner for everyone to like hang out in, and they can listen to us as long as they'd like. And yeah, we bring a bunch of merchandise, and we yeah, just have a good time. But this last PAX East, we also were able to do like a show proper at the MagFest Jam Space room. Mm-hmm. And so that was particularly why we brought 4 of us out there to do kind of a proper show. And yeah, we're just trying to get more East Coast exposure, because we're mostly West Coast boys. We've been doing a lot of stuff over here, but a couple times every year we get out to the East Coast. We do MagFest, PAX East. Hopefully we can get out there for some other conventions that are coming up this summer. Yeah.
So, I know what your specialty is, but what specific instrument is in your realm of expertise whilst jamming with your fellow soul bros?
So
the -7 people I don't listen to this. Sorry.
Yeah, we the band started with just drums and keyboards essentially. So I was the keyboardist, and I guess sort of a novel element to my keyboard playing is I play with my left hand. I play bass lines on a secondary keyboard, and then on my right hand I'll be comping chords and playing rhythm, and sometimes playing leads and solos and stuff. So in essence, I'm playing bass and keys, both through the keyboard interface. That's just kind of been the way I've always played. My dad was a Hammond B3 organ player, and that's kind of the tradition. When you play like jazz organ on a Hammond B3, usually your left hand is playing a bass line, or if not your left hand, then your foot is actually walking a bass line using the foot pedals. But just I kind of grew up around that environment of musicians, and just growing up in a musical family, I grew up doing the left hand bass lines, and that's it makes things a little easier for us to learn material. It's one less person to have to get on the same page with learning new songs, and at the rate, we're always trying to bring in more stuff to our repertoire, which it's gotten pretty extensive. But yes, in short, keyboards. That's what I do.
So, I'm not sure how these types of bands these types of video game music-based bands happen. So, is Super Soul Bros your full-time job, or do you have a job when you're not doing this, or is it a mixture of both, or what?
Yeah, it's a mixture. I'm trying to make it as sustainable a business as it can be for everyone involved. But it certainly occupies a lot of my time. So I wouldn't say it's my full-time job, but it certainly occupies a lot of my time. But I am a full-time musician, I guess I would say. If I'm not playing in this band, otherwise I'm performing with other groups, or even doing some other projects of my own. And a lot of time, I'm a regular teacher at a music school in Palo Alto as well. So I do music lessons, piano lessons specifically, and then performance. And that's pretty much my full-time occupation.
Just gotta, as I'm also a fellow educator of the very young people, when I'm not trying to fulfill my mad dream of being a video game podcast person on the YouTube. And
there you go.
This is weird, because you are the second person I've had on this show who was and is a teacher. And before they got involved into the video game world by some reason, the first being Gaijin Goomba, who does cultural analyses on people, places, and things in video games. So that's spooky.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I know Megaran specifically, nerdcore hip hop artist. Like he started off as a teacher and made the plunge, and is now full-time just producing the music that he is passionate about, and he's making it work.
Oh, this is just me freaking out because during this past PAX South, before you actually got to the booth and you were just hooked up a bunch of your jams to play on the speaker in Fangamer, I heard like I heard the collaboration you did on your latest album, Stritches Brew. Buy
that's
it
right.
on Bandcamp.
Yes.
Buy it. And just, I don't know, just because all of your songs, or the ones I've listened to, are fairly lyricless, just to hear someone deliver video game based rap just got me hooked. And so I looked it up on your YouTube channel and saw the recorded jam of you and him at that location, and I'm just
the live video. Yep.
And I was doubly amazed when you confirmed the speculations of a commenter when you said that dude was just pretty much just like making it up as he went, and it's just amazing.
No, Megaran, he's amazing. He's just his free flows are just incredible, and it's always cool getting to do a show with him or share a bill with him, because we'll do our set and we'll get him to sit in on a couple tunes, and then he'll do his set, and then he might have us be his backing band for a couple of tunes. So he's like one of the ideal artists to share a show with and do a show with this band. And it's just it's a funky good time.
Something I've been wondering. So when this started, when you realized Super Soul Bros was becoming more and more of an actual thing that you and the members could get something out of, was there a specific song or album that really got your name out there, or was it just like a gradual thing where you just like built on like every previous album?
Right, that's a good question. And we've been kind of asking ourselves that, like, what can we do to make this thing bigger, quicker? But it really, from what we've been trying, in the past, and what I can look back on, I think it's just been kind of a slow build. And it seems that that's the way it goes for a lot of acts doing this video game music thing. It's such a niche that, that's a good question that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Like, how do you get, when you have such a niche idea or a niche piece of a niche product, essentially, how do you get it in front of those specific people that would love it? But essentially, we were writing on 2 CDs for about 2 or 3 years. We weren't really putting out new content. The first CD being Live at Iggy's, which is actually a nickname for iguanas, and iguanas is the name of that burrito restaurant that we started out at. So it's kind of like it all started there at Iguanas, home of the Burritozilla, which is this monstrous burrito they've got. It's really good. We put that CD out, and then we did another live show at San Pedro Square, which is another like outdoor venue here in San Jose. And that show went really well. That was kind of our true debut of the band. Everything prior to that was kind of us just kind of jamming out at Iguanas, and we were kind of just doing our thing, and people enjoyed it, and it was more of a casual kind of background thing. But at San Pedro, we were the center of attention, and fortunately, we did a pretty decent job performing, and we caught that lightning in a bottle and recorded it, both with video and audio. So we put out that CD, and then subsequently put out videos of a few tunes of ours on there. I would say specifically Chemical Plant Zone, if you just look at the numbers on YouTube, that's probably the most popular video of ours from San Pedro Square. And while I don't think our popularity is strictly attributed to that, I think that could have been one of the bigger influences and got us some attention online. But yeah, I think it's just been a slow burn, and we've been kind of gaining steam as we go. We now have 5 CDs to our name. Last MagFest, we put out 2 CDs. We got 2 CDs completed in time to release them at MagFest. And one of those being Fireball, it's our first studio recorded CD. So it's 5 little tracks. It's just a little quick EP, but it's got a lot of our high energy tunes, and the production quality is pretty solid on that. So for all the people that were asking for years, when are you guys going to put out a studio recording? That was kind of our our intention with that, and we got that out there. And now our current project is Mother album, or Earthbound specifically, which may be coming out hopefully in the next few months here. We're still doing some tracking on it, but that will be our next studio recorded production, and I think it's going to be a pretty big deal for that niche of a niche. Like Earthbound having a very devoted fan base.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the niche of Earthbound fans that also are in this niche of video game music, appreciators. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen once we put this out.
Well,
yeah.
So there's something to keep an eye on in the coming days.
Absolutely.
So there's something I want to ask you. You mentioned earlier that when you're not busting out the sweetest jams, you're a music teacher. So my question is, this is the video game music band. Like, what drew? Do you have a heavy gaming background, or is like Super Soul Bros just like mostly music, or was gaming like a thing when you grew up, or how did that come about?
Yeah. I mean, I think for most people that grew up in the 80s and 90s, like I was a child of the 90s specifically. Like my first time playing Mario was, I think I was 6 years old, in the early 90s, and that was just part of growing up, in America in that era, like Nintendo, Sega, and if you didn't have one of those systems, then you had a friend who had it, and you'd be playing it all the time. So absolutely, video games were a big part of my childhood, and I was mostly a Nintendo boy, so I played a lot of Mario Kart and just various Super Nintendo games specifically, and a lot of that music just became scar tissue for me, and I would hear it, and because I play by ear, any song that I hear, it's pretty fun to try to figure out how to play it. And so even as a kid, I would be figuring out how to play the Mario theme or Zelda theme or something. And then as I grew up, I didn't really have musician friends. I mentioned my dad being a musician. Music to me was kind of like a thing that grown-ups did, because the only musicians I was around were people my dad's age. So I'd never really had peers or people that were my age that were into music, or could play music essentially. So I would often just kind of play alone and do like a drum machine or something. And actually my brother dabbled with drums, so he and I would jam out and just figure out, we had this particular medley of about 8 or so different video game tunes, and it was like this 10-minute arrangement that we had worked out just from kind of messing around and playing, figuring it out as we went. And but then I grew up more and eventually met like Brian Shu, the guitarist in Super Soul Bros. He and I hit it off. We both had we had a lot of mutual interest in particular funk, jazz fusion groups, namely the Yellow Jackets, which was Yellow Jackets being a jazz fusion band from the Bay Area, or with members that were from the Bay Area, San Jose specifically. And they were very popular back in the, well, they still are popular, but they put their material out in the early 80s. And it was just really funky stuff that I totally could hear that having influence on video game music. A lot of these compositions that you hear, like, for instance, Mario Kart, it's got a lot of interesting harmonic and rhythmic and syncopated ideas. It has a lot of elements that you hear in jazz fusion, which was a very popular genre in Japan, where these video game songs were being composed back in the 80s and the 90s. And so Brian and I just so happened to enjoy Yellow Jackets and jazz fusion, and I had been wanting to maybe I just had the idea of throwing together a band that could play video game music and giving it kind of that flair of jazz, funk, fusion that, in my opinion, is what inspired a lot of video game music. So that was that was kind of my pipe dream, and we've been riding along with that for a while now.
So, as a video game band, I have to ask, in any of your what would you say so far is would be the most, like, amazing experience, like one single or several things that just made you and everyone else go, this is why we're doing this? Like, what is that, that moment?
Right. That's a really good question for us to keep asking ourselves, because that's what keeps you going. I think what really gave us a big boost was the first year that we went to MagFest, because MagFest, for anyone that doesn't know, it stands for Music and Gaming Festival, and it's over in Maryland, and I think they're like going on 15 years or almost 20 years now. It's been for them, it's been a slow burn as well. They've just been building up, attendance over the years, and now it's become this very large event with a bunch of really enthusiastic attendees that love video game music and love video games, and so they book like 20 or 30 video game bands. And it's like the ideal spot for what we do, the ideal festival to play. And so they had us back in 2014, I want to say, or 15, and we did our show on the main stage there, and it was easily one of the larger stages we had performed on, and easily the most enthusiastic crowd we had ever played for. And then the following year they had us again, and the crowd just got like doubled or tripled, and it's just been ever since. We've been going every year, and it's really great to just see people and meet people that don't just get a kick out of what you're doing, but a lot of the people that come to see us at MagFest, they are musicians themselves, and they really appreciate what we're doing. And so I would say MagFest is has been and will continue to be like one of the highlights for us as a band. It's just the ideal place to play, and the people in the community, they are so into exactly what we're doing. It's a great experience.
And with the good comes the bad, so now I feel obligated to ask, what would you say is the most embarrassing or most just straight up bad experience you singularly or like collectively as the band have had during your time?
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty juicy. I don't know. I've tried to remain optimistic throughout the the duration of this project, um, and I like to think I'm fairly level-headed and understanding that things like that will happen. So because of that, I nothing really. I'm trying to think if anything really sticks out. Um, I may have to think on that one. In general, like when things just aren't fun, let's say, I just I figure that it's only temporary, and that's not a thing that really I dwell on. So I think those kinds of experiences you're asking about, I kind of suppress them or don't really pay them much mind. So that's why I'm kind of struggling to think of them. Um, I think in general, it gets it can get a little grinding when we play at, let's say, PAX, and we're playing at the Fangamer booth, and let's say we go to PAX West, which is a 4-day event, and all 4 days we're playing for 8 hours straight, and probably play the Zelda theme 20 to 30 times each day. It just because it definitely attracts people's attention, and it's good for our exposure. It lets people know what we're about very quickly. And, anyone can recognize these classic melodies. It just kind of gets to be kind of a grind. But I'm still happy to be doing it, and I enjoy meeting people. And yeah, I think in particular it's just whenever people within the band aren't willing to bring a positive attitude, that's when it becomes unfun. And that's when I kind of question, is this worth doing? Do I want to be around these people if this is like an attitude we're going to be having, or a perspective we're going to have? We're doing it for the fun of it, so it needs to be fun.
So, something I've been wondering, why do you play behind the Fangamer booth specifically? Did you guys work out something with Fangamer?
Yeah, they're friends of ours. We actually specifically played. Well, rather, going back, I started off making movies when I was younger, kind of in my high school years. I had produced it was at the birth of YouTube, like in those mid 2000s. I was making a lot of videos and short films and stuff with my brother and some friends of ours. And one of the films that we made was an Earthbound film adaptation. It was called EB Saga, or Earthbound Saga. And we put out a few episodes of that. It was like a webisode thing. And we had a few just Earthbound films that we had made, and those had kind of garnered a lot of attention within the Earthbound community. And Fangamer, essentially the people that work at Fangamer, they all met and began meeting and began working together through starmen.net, which was kind of the de facto Earthbound online community website back from since the early 2000s or late 90s. So anyway, they had caught wind of our film, and since that point, we've just been friends of theirs. And as their company has grown, they eventually had space at their booth, and they thought it'd be great to have us play some music over there.
Sounds neat.
It's very neat. Yeah.
So, is there a specific franchise that you personally enjoy making music for the most, or is it just like any video game franchise as long as I get to, put in my own type of flavor to it?
Right, right. I think going back to Earthbound, that's definitely a franchise that I'm an advocate for, just because I feel that more people should experience it, and so um, it's definitely one of my favorite games, and one of my favorite like works of art, I would say, kind of setting aside the fact that it's a video game or comes in the form of a video game. So I love to turn people onto that game, and its music is so dynamic. It covers so many different genres, but a lot of it is already pretty funky because it has like a rhythm and blues funk band in the game. There are characters within the story, so a lot of their material and a lot of the music that is in those sections of the game, those just kind of already fit perfectly with our aesthetic as a band. But yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head with, as long as we're able to give it our spin and give it a kind of a new reimagining with a funk jazz kind of flavor and just putting our different influences into it, pretty much any material is just as enjoyable.
And I've seen that a lot of your music is based on the video games of back in the day, which I guess makes sense since those games are already firmly established. But do you think as the band continues to, get its name out there, you'll branch into like some newer games or just newer installments of franchises you've been making music for currently?
We've been mostly selecting material that will cause the biggest ripples, in a sense. Like, as we're still trying to build up momentum and build exposure to the band, we've been basically choosing tunes that we think would get the most exposure or attract the most people. But also with Earthbound, like, we're trying to be, select material that will really reverberate within smaller niche communities that are like really devoted, because we're seeing that can definitely help with building up your following. If you reach out to communities that are already very passionate about a particular franchise like Earthbound, it's perfect because I'm already a fan of the game, and so that was our reasoning for doing this Earthbound album. But as the band started, it was mostly just material that was already scar tissue for me. Like, as a kid, I played a lot of Mario Kart, so from the very beginning, we played Mario Kart material. We played Chemical Plant Zone because I remember I could never get past that level. So I heard that song a lot when I was a kid. So a lot of the material was just stuff that I grew up listening to and already knew. And then from there, as more people joined the band, they started arranging additional songs that they were fans of, and many of which I had never heard of before. And we've also been implementing more contemporary material. I mean, we did an Undertale tune in the last year. That's actually on our Stritch's Brew album.
I talk about passionate fan bases.
Right, exactly. And so that's been a lot of our material has been in the retro kind of classic game category, but we're definitely open to the more new material. Actually, Alex, our sax player, he introduced a Monster Hunter tune because he's a big fan of Monster Hunter. Just a wide variety of stuff, games, is what we've been starting to introduce now.
So, do you think there's ever a franchise that has music that you know for a fact that you and the band will just stay away from, either because of like some type of technical limitation, or you just personally like don't find that music appealing?
Well, we're a funk band, so we play music that has like a groove to it. It has a beat to it. In a way, it's something you could dance to or tap your foot to. So a lot of ambient music that you encounter in, a lot of different games. The soundtracks that are more amorphous, or they don't have that very clear kind of groove or tempo that we could do something with. Those tunes we tend to, I wouldn't say it's impossible for us to arrange those tunes, but the ideas are a little more, it takes more time and effort, whereas another tune, like a Metal Slug tune, is already like a very funky tune that we could pretty quickly take and transform. It's a it's a shorter distance to go. I'm going to need to cut out here in probably about 2 minutes here. I can call you back when I get back if you wanted to resume, or if there are any like final questions or whatever, we could do those.
I guess if you have to go, just for the negative 17 people who are listening to this right now, like, where are all the places where people can go and just throw their money and end up with your stuff?
If they'd like to throw money at us, they can go to supersoulbros.com, where we have an online store. You can order physical CDs, you can order shirts, you can order this super drive that we have, which is, it's basically a Super Nintendo cartridge with a USB drive inside of it, and a USB cable sticking out, and it's basically preloaded with our entire discography. So if you're interested in getting all of our music plus a bunch of extra bonus material, it's all in that nice little package. So you can purchase all of those things on our website, supersoulbros.com. You can also go to our Bandcamp, which is, I think, supersoulbros.bandcamp.com, where you can get digital copies of all of our albums. And then we also do a Twitch stream on most Fridays. We're trying to be better about it. But we play our music live from our rehearsal studio and broadcast that on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/supersoulbros. And people can donate money to us in a way they can tip the band and request a tune from our repertoire of music. And we're working on a Patreon, which hopefully we can get that dialed in the next month here, where we have some ideas of perks where people could vote on which songs we will learn and add to our repertoire next, get like kind of bootleg recordings of our shows, maybe even get access to some of our charts, and or have one-on-one lessons with us over Skype or something like that. There are a lot of different ideas floating around, but basically if you just jump on supersoulbros.com, you will, anything that we have to offer, it'll be accessible through that site there.
Neat. And I suppose that's it for now. Hopefully this will not be the last time you or a soul bro in general is on the show.
Absolutely. I would love to do it again, and hopefully I can get the rest of the fellows here too.
But until that day, this has been Pumpkin Copter Cast, a good old podcast about video games. And if the negative 22 of you out there are enjoying this, feel free to subscribe, like, follow me on Twitter at tgorman83, even though I don't really post anything worth reading. So you can follow the Soul Bros at Super Soul Bros on Twitter, and for Mr. Benson specifically, it's at gwobs.com, at gwobs on Twitter.
Gwobs, yes.
Gwobs,
Yep.
whatever.
That's my personal handle. Yeah.
Whatever.
Gwobs.
And yep, we will see all of you next time. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you.